Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Goober Brothers Entertainment. It is a lovely sunny morning here in Florida, and today we're gonna have a pretty good show. With me today is my buddy from So What Happens Next podcast, where they predict what movie is going to be, and then they watch them and then review them. Got Thomas. What's going on, man?
Hey man, how's it going? Nice to hear it's sunny down there. It snowed up here, so
Ooh,
yeah, sucks.
man. I would hate to have to wear a hoodie right now. That would just blow.
Yeah, you get used to it. I mean, it's one of those things where it's cold for like 6 months out of the year. So if it keeps being cold, you just kind of keep doing what you were already doing.
Well, I'm sure you're missing Florida, man.
Yeah, I'm missing the weather.
That's about it, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, I get why people live here.
yeah, well, when you make that bank and get that retirement money, man, come on
And
down
go to
here and
bougie part of Florida down south.
bougie part. Yeah, you can hang out in the villages.
Oh yeah. No, thank you.
And down below is the Don of 2 Cent Toys. May I introduce to you, co-host of the boardroom, Salvador. What's up, man?
Hello and salutations. It's me, Salvador, making not my first appearance on the channel. I've been here a couple of times, but, I'm always happy to be here. I've been lurking in the chat and talking about Jurassic Fart and just about damn near everything else under the sun while you guys are streaming. So now I'm here.
Nice.
Cool.
Nice. Glad to have you here, man. Yeah, usually you're here for like the boardroom episodes that are on my channel, but as far as like the morning ones, it's hard to get you on.
Yeah,
I gotcha.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird situation. So I'm in my line of work, not to brag or nothing, but I'm essential. And I normally this is my bedtime generally speaking because I'm on the night shift currently, and then when I'm on the day shift, it just always worked out that I was working. So, but finally, I got turd wrangled in here.
Well, I'm glad to have you here, man. And it's a pretty good morning to have a show. We get the boardroom later on tonight, which is going to be me, Salvador, and Etep Queen is the place to be reviews. So this is a pretty fun pre-show.
Hell yeah.
I was going to try to have Pete on, but his wife has to use the office for work because she's
Boo.
essential too. So yeah, Boo is right.
She is essential though.
She is. So he's like, I can't stream during the day. And I was like, damn it. That's okay. We're going to have a great show. And hopefully he comes here in the chat.
Hopefully.
But yeah, so gentlemen, a couple topics we're going to go over today. We're going to be going over the X-Men movies, what our favorites are, what our least favorites are, and why that is. And yeah, Bogan.
Bogan and Broly.
Yeah, Bogan's dick.
And Bogan's dick.
What's happening in here?
I don't know. I had to put something together real quick. That's what I'm known for.
That's our Thomas. That's our unofficial mascot for the boardroom.
Gotcha.
Our official, unofficial mascot.
Official, unofficial. He's appeared in a couple thumbnails, and he's pretty killer. He's had his way with Rostico a couple times. If you,
Yes.
Oh boy.
yep, and there's me.
Nice.
I think that's a pretty decent likeness. I mean, before you got your hair cut.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's there.
it's a good feeling to know that you use a Kylo Ren head for me.
It's not actually a Kylo Ren head.
Oh, it's not?
No, it's...
He lied to you. That's just what it was.
No, it's, what's his fucking name? Not Jesse Eisenberg. What's that fuck's name from Zombieland?
Jesse Eisenberg.
It is?
Yeah.
Well, goddamn. So Jesse Eisenberg.
It actually looks pretty decent, though. Damn, like I didn't expect that. I thought you straight up used the Kylo Ren head from,
No.
and then just put a mustache on it.
No, that is a Jesse Eisenberg head. He was from, was that Batman versus Superman when he was Lex
Yeah.
Luthor?
Oh, yeah.
It was from that line of toys, and I just popped the head off and made the mustache and the 5 o'clock shadow. And then I trimmed the hair a little bit because it was really long.
Well,
And then
my figure
gave me
looks
better
pretty.
eyebrows.
My figure looks pretty damn sexy, if I don't mind.
Hell yeah.
Gonna toot my own horn, but I want to toot my figure's own horn.
No,
Ew.
no, that's Bogan's. That's Bogan's job.
Bogan job. All right. So today, we're gonna be going over the X-Men movies. So, gentlemen, I know you guys are into the X-Men,
Hell
and
yeah.
so you guys have seen all the movies, I'm assuming.
No.
Yeah, I have. It's been a minute since I saw all of them, but I've seen them all.
So,
I
At least
I have
one.
not seen the newest one, Dark Phoenix.
is that the only one?
That's the only one I haven't seen.
Okay. I haven't seen it either. I'm not even gonna gown it because I heard it sucks ass and it looks stupid, and I don't really like Sophie Turner. So,
She
It
wasn't
is.
bad in
Yeah.
Game of Thrones, but I did not believe her for a second as Jean Grey.
Nah, I watched it on a really long flight. Um, and that was kind of the only reason I did it was because I ran out of everything else to watch. So I was just kind of like, well, let's see how bad this is. And I mean, it's one of those movies where like when you go into it with really low expectations, you're kind of just like, yeah, it was entertaining enough. Like it had some cool sequences, but overall it was just sort of like, I don't know, it just seems weird.
yeah, it just having another Jean Grey that looks nothing remotely even like the first one. It's just they casted the newer X-Men guys so poorly, except
Hmm.
for I would say Professor X looks pretty decent.
Yeah,
Oh, I
James.
think, yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I would say James McAvoy is his name. I think he did a really good job, but I really liked Michael Fassbender as Magneto.
I was gonna say the same exact thing. Like Michael Fassbender killed it as Magneto, in my opinion.
Yeah,
It's just
and
hard to like imagine them ending up like Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart.
Well, I
yeah,
think that's because it goes into the '90s. If it stayed in the '60s, I don't think it'd be a big deal. Like I saw it perfectly fine, and then suddenly it's like, well, it's 1990, whatever, and they're still looking like they did 30 years ago.
Yeah,
right. Well, that was the thing. Like if they so from the '60s going to the what was it 2000 I think or 2001 when X Men came out the first movie
2000.
that. Okay, that would have been that's a 40-year gap. Okay, I believe that they could have aged into those characters, but they kept jumping them to the next decade
Mhm.
because they got to get that nostalgia buried.
Which was really frustrating, I think, at the way it was all paced out, right? Like, oh, well,
Hmm.
each movie is one decade away from the other. And it worked, I think, when we're dealing with like the mid to late 60s to the 70s with Days of Future Past. And then after
Hmm.
that, it just sort of stopped.
Yeah.
Like, and I think I kind of blame like the Stranger Things hype a little bit for
Hmm.
how we're doing Apocalypse because it's like, oh, yeah, people still love the 80s. And it's just like, let's make this movie in the 80s as opposed to maybe just the later 70s.
Hmm.
And that was frustrating to me because it's just like you're making a movie to check boxes. You're not making a movie that has anything to do with anything.
Right. Which that movie I watched it in theaters. So I was overseas when I saw that movie for the first time, and for people that want to complain about like censorship here, go to the Middle East and see how much they cut out of fucking movies. Like a 2 hour runtime will be like an hour and 15 minutes real quick.
No
Um,
shit. What'd they cut out?
like so that whole scene with spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen the movie or plans on watching it, though it's been out since I think 2017. Um,
Apocalypse.
yeah,
Okay.
I think it was 2017. The part where Apocalypse is trying to transfer his consciousness into Xavier.
Yeah.
And again, I only saw it one time since. I forget how they stop it, but when I saw it over there, all you saw was him go into his mind. They have that thing where he gets really big in the mansion, and then all of a sudden, Apocalypse is defeated.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck? He beat him with his brain? Like,
Yeah.
I know he's not exactly an Omega level mutant, but and he has really strong,
Yeah.
telekinesis or telepathy, but goddamn. So
Yeah.
they
I
cut
don't
out
even
like
know.
important shit.
Yeah. No, I
Or
saw. Did they have? I got a question about movies in other countries because
Mhm.
this was a really weird experience. So I've only ever seen a movie in another country once,
Mhm.
and it was like I was in Turkey and I went and I saw that god awful Valerian movie or whatever the hell it was called.
I remember hearing about it. I
Yeah,
can picture the title card in my head, but I never saw it.
the title card is the movie. Nothing happens in the movie.
Outstanding.
It's hot trash. But there was like random intermission in the movie, like self-inflicted intermission in the movie. Like the movie literally paused and the lights came up in the theater and I'm like looking around because I saw it in the middle of the day because I had to kill time and I'm
Mhm.
looking around and I'm just like there's only one other person here and they're not reacting to this. I'm like, is something wrong? Is the movie, are we done with it? Like, did something happen? I'm looking around, just like one of the ushers comes in, looks around the theater, walks out. About 15 minutes go by, and then all of a sudden it starts back up. And I was like, okay, guess that was an intermission. Like, did you deal with that out there? Like, it was just really weird. I never knew other
No,
people did
I
that.
didn't deal with that. Most of the things I encountered were like cultural differences.
Mm,
Like here, we're really big about don't talk during the movie, don't text. We have those little previews and the like, and the like the Eminem commercial that plays before every fucking movie now.
yeah,
That is not a thing to them.
really.
They'll have full on conversations. They let their kids run around the movie theaters. Like it's a cultural thing. So
Huh.
for them, uh, it's this is gonna sound a lot worse than I mean it to say, but it's the truth. Men over there are raised to believe that they are the most important person on the planet, regardless of race, class, like anything.
Right.
All of them are raised to believe that they are a prince of some sort, and so they all think that they are the most important person in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
And so if someone starts having a conversation next to them, they'll start another conversation on the other side of them louder to cover up their conversation because they're more important.
Hmm.
And it just kind of escalates. And so when you're watching a movie, it's mostly people talking over the movie.
Yeah.
And
Well, that kind of
so the
stinks.
kids are allowed to do whatever they want. Like they'll run up and they'll grab your drink, start drinking it and shit like that sometimes. And
Whoa.
the worst thing is the phones. They have no problem holding up their phone and like recording the movie. Like I saw a dude live streaming the movie on his little Snapchat thing, and he was talking to the screen and all that kind of stuff, like recording it and all that.
Yeah.
Now that's not every movie,
Right.
but and that's so they have kind of sort of like here, I guess. My hometown just had a Regal Cinemas. Like it was $12 a pop, and you sat in a fold down seat that hurt your ass.
Yeah.
But here, where I am now, they have like these really nice theaters with recliners. They have
Mm-hmm.
food, and the ticket prices vary. That's how it is there. Like if you pay for the most expensive one, then you
Right.
don't get that. But if you pay for the cheap showing, then that's what you get is all that rigmarole and all the ruckus and everything else.
Huh. Okay. Well, I mean that makes a lot. I mean, I saw similar stuff when I was out that way in the past too. It's like an interesting kind of cultural difference, and it's like
Mm.
I definitely got to say like I am probably a lot more culturally rooted in how I watch movies, but at the same time, you got people. I don't know. Up where I am now, it's just I see people like pulling out their phones and live streaming and letting their kids run around just the same, but they ain't taking my drinks, so I guess that's something. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, that I guess like from an American point of view, that kind of sucks. But yeah, I
Yeah.
guess it's probably more just looked at as like a social event and less of a let's go see a movie.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
I would fling popcorn at a little shit that would try taking my stuff.
no,
Don't you dare touch my Nestle Crunch Bites.
I got I was talked to at a movie theater once because I yelled at somebody.
Mm,
So, and it doesn't. It's one of those things. It doesn't matter. Like if you're an American, like you could get hit by a car and they'd be like, "Well, what were you doing in the street?"
yeah, no, yeah, you get looked at like you dumb. So
Yeah.
it's really the best you could do is just not do anything.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry to go off track. But yeah, so
Very good.
but yeah,
No,
no,
like
yeah.
so as far as X-Men movies go, I think it's pretty safe to say that the best ones were starting right at the beginning, and then as time went on, they got worse and worse.
Mm,
I don't know
Except for a
about
couple of
that.
them. Except for a couple of
yeah.
them.
They've had a weird trajectory. I think that it's been
Yeah.
more of a kind of a roller coaster because it
Yeah.
was like one was I was in the fifth grade when the first one came out, and I was high off of the animated series and all that shit. And
Yeah.
so I saw the movie and I loved it because Wolverine was my favorite character at that point, and it was a Wolverine movie. to be perfectly honest.
A
And
lot of them are though.
yeah, they really are.
A lot
And
of them
then,
are.
good.
Oh no, I was going to say a lot of them are, but the first couple of them, I mean, you get a huge Wolverine presence, but it's cool seeing, especially in the first one, the teamwork dynamic of the whole team instead of it just
Oh,
being
yeah.
a solo slashing film.
Yeah, but yeah. So the first one was really good. I really, really, really love X2.
Same.
And then the Last Stand, I saw that, and I didn't see it in theaters. This is gonna date me pretty badly, but my friends downloaded it on LimeWire, and
Good times.
so we watched it on that when I was in high school. I was like, this movie fucking sucks. I hate this movie. And then First Class came out when I was in college, I think, and maybe my senior year or right after my senior year or something like that. I didn't see it. I was like, no, I didn't like the last one. But my uncle, who coincidentally actually lives in Florida, I was there visiting him, and my cousin, his son, he's about like 13 at the time. He wanted to watch it, and they had it on Blu-ray. So I was like, ah, fuck it, I'll watch it. I was like, this is really good. I really like this movie. And then Days of Future Past, I was like, baby, I am back. I am in. This movie's fucking awesome. And then Apocalypse was like, and just shit the bed.
Yeah.
And then I didn't see the next one.
Yeah, I gotta agree almost verbatim with your like trajectory of the movie because it was just I saw in theaters, but I remember just like, yeah, this is really good. Like I'm enjoying the first one. The second one, I'm like, this is the best one. And then the third one, I remember when I was younger thinking it was like really cool to watch. But then as I got older, I was like, wait, nothing really happens in this movie. Like it kind of stinks. They do some like big cool stuff, but it doesn't really do anything. Then I remember when they were like, we're gonna make a Wolverine movie, and we were like stoked as fuck for that, and then went and saw it, and it was just like, yeah, this kind of stinks. Like it had a
I've
really
smelled
cool
this turd
intro.
before.
Yeah, exactly. And then First Class came out, and I was like, all right, I'll give it another chance. And I remember seeing it going like, wow, that was like really cool. They can maybe they like fixed it, and then they did Days of Future Past, and I remember going like, fuck yeah, like this, I'm in for it. I'm ready for it. This is great. X-Men is back. We passed the torch. We're really cool now. Like let's make this for the next kind of generation moving along. And then yeah, Apocalypse. I didn't even go see Apocalypse in theaters. I think from Apocalypse on, it started being like plane flights when I needed to kill time, and so like I saw Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix on a plane, and on two separate planes, and I just remember like going, yeah, cool, I guess. Like it's kind of weird. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the direction they took Apocalypse, and that they didn't go far enough with it. I guess like my rule of thumb is like if you're gonna do the like weird sort of religious angle with stuff, just do it all the way, man. Make him like starting a cult. Like let's go for it, as opposed to he's doing it, and all of his buddies and Magneto are just kind of like, yeah, we're here, like we're around.
I was told there'd be free cake.
Solid reference, by the way.
Yeah.
And then yeah, with Dark Phoenix, I'll admit like it got a lot of hate, and I guess maybe it was just because I went into it with really low expectations. But I remember like finishing it, going like, I don't see how that was as bad as it could have been, or as it was made out to be. But it wasn't like good. Like it was like. I think maybe the only reason I was okay with it is because it ends on a note that's like, here's the end of this series. We're done with it. We don't need to do anymore.
You were expecting a TV dinner, and you were given an Applebee's steak. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't the best.
Right, like exactly. I was expecting, one of those little microwave the meatloaf thing. I'm like,
Hungry Man or something.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's not terrible. Like that might be somewhat of a hot take, but it's just like, it ended at least. I mean, it would have been trash if they were like pushing for that next movie by the end of it. Like, here's a twist. They might have had some kind of twist. I don't remember. I think there was like some sort of post credits tease or whatever, but the actual end of the movie, I'm like, this is fine. I'm like, okay, whatever.
My whole thing is like so every franchise or IP, they've all got like their big bad, like their biggest and their baddest. Like Thanos is like the big bad of the Marvel universe, so it's like how are they going to top him?
Yeah.
And it's like they went to Apocalypse, who at least as a child of the '90s, Apocalypse was like the biggest of the baddest. Like there was
Hmm.
no defeating Apocalypse. Like the only thing they could ever do is like send him forward in time. They couldn't just like they could move him. They couldn't defeat him ever.
Right.
And it's like, but we beat him with our brain. And it's okay. So you go to Dark Phoenix. Not that Dark Phoenix, Jean Grey, Dark Phoenix isn't a formidable foe because she just wrecks and annihilates everything when she is there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, mm, like what one was it? Was it God? I'm trying. Was it Days of Future Past or something where like Jean has like a flash and you see like the Phoenix thing like behind her briefly?
No, that's Apocalypse.
It's Apocalypse.
Yeah,
Okay.
because that's how I think, if I remember, that's how she takes Apocalypse down. Is she's like Jesus walking on air and then zaps him, and there's a brief Phoenix fire behind her.
So she had the Phoenix
Um,
fire before she went to space and got the Phoenix.
yeah, and that's the weird, like, let's make, and this is where I don't care for movies like this or like other Marvel movies trying to get too artistic with the foreshadowing, because it's like
Mm-hmm.
your movie, it could do that, but it's not, you haven't set it up to do that. So when you see something like this weird Super Saiyan energy
Mm-hmm.
in the shape of a phoenix, you're thinking, oh, she's already there. And then it's like, no, 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 that actually, no, that's not a thing. That it's just to look like that because it's a creative choice. And I'm like, well, you weren't really setting this movie up to be anything more than what I was seeing, so I'm not really interpreting a whole lot
Right.
other than what's in the universe. And yeah,
It's like, I
I
mean, they could have spun it like because movies take artistic license. They could have just been like, oh yeah, that's part of her power,
yeah,
and that it would have been like okay, but that was my thing when I saw them in space. I was like, wait, so she has it, but she doesn't have it.
hmm
Okay, but I don't know. That's I just don't know how you make the jump from Apocalypse to the Dark Phoenix.
I
Like,
mean, if you like made the Dark Phoenix three movies on its own and you really went hard on like the actual like comic book Dark Phoenix plot, I could see it because you're on that like space level scale of things.
mm-hmm,
I could see how you could maybe using just the setting make it more of a big deal. Plus, like she's killing people. It's like I'm not super well versed in the comics, but it's my understanding like she was like there are main line characters that die as a
mm-hmm,
result of her actions, kind of like they do in the movie.
mm-hmm,
But it's just sort of one of these things where it's like, if you do that and you dwell on it, and I can agree with a lot of the articles I saw after I saw Apocalypse or Dark Phoenix, is just you're doing the things without any of the emotional impact, which is
mm-hmm.
exactly how that movie came out. It's like she kills somebody, I don't remember who. She
Did she
kills,
kill Mystique or something?
Yeah.
yes, that's it. She kills Mystique, and it's just like it's trying to play as like the serious emotional moment where she's like, "Oh my god, what did I do?" and she's freaking out, and that's when she like runs off to Magneto or whatever.
Mm-hmm,
And then everyone else is freaking out, and Mystique's like, "Oh shit, didn't think that would happen," and all the other crap. And it's just kind of like, there was no build up for this. Like they really should have, I don't know, laid into her and Mystique being close or something more than this, or just the group dynamic as a whole, everybody being tight. Instead, I think the movie just sort of starts out where they're kind of like, yeah, we're the X-Men, we're superheroes, and not everybody is exactly cool with that, but whatever. And then we go to space and save some astronauts or whatever, and shit occurs. But it's just, I don't
mm-hmm,
know. Like, if it had that bit of emotion, it might have hit more, but I think you also need at least two or three movies to do it
mm-hmm.
some justice.
Well, I feel like they should have started setting that up with Days of Future Past.
Agreed.
Like maybe because Jean Grey was not even maybe a fetus in Days of Future Past,
Yeah.
at least in the 60s 70s timeline. But they should have had like some even just offhand mentions on the TV about like oh this crew has gone to outer space and just
Hmm.
something about them like maybe coming back and they brought it with them or something. And that way in the 80s, she gets exposed to it and you see her trying to learn how to cope with it, and Charles working with her, and then at the end of that movie, in a post-credit scene or something, you just see a flash,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, Cable and Bishop are standing there, and they're like, "Well, who the hell are you?" And they're like, "No, there's no time to talk. Apocalypse is coming."
Right.
And then the next movie would be Apocalypse.
See,
But
that
Yeah,
just
that
sounds
works.
so much better.
Well, I mean, it's how we're now being like given superhero movies, and arguably it's not a bad thing because it's how Marvel's sort of working, right? Like you get your post credits thing where they're teasing the Cable appearing and being like, "Hey, no time to talk, Apocalypse is coming." But on top of that, you are sort of filtering your movie through, two or three other movies that aren't about that. Like we're not
mhm,
beating Thanos to death for 7 movies or for 22 movies as it is. We're kind of just like really slowly building up when
mhm,
then we get to Endgame and then it is. These could have, I think Days of Future Past would have been perfect, the perfect place to make that happen because it's just like you dealing with time travel, you're dealing with the future, it's not up front and center, and you can
mhm,
just kind of go, yeah, like there's some weird shit going on in the background. Like maybe have Charles like reading about some mutant kid that was born who is like testing super crazy high as a mutant or some shit. I don't know. But it's just like, oh, okay, and it just happens to be Jean Grey. And then yeah, do a Venom thing with Phoenix. I mean, you don't have to make them go to space. That adds so much extra shit. It's like not even
mhm.
worth it. Just
You
do a
gotta
Venom thing.
So yeah, you gotta work out why the fuck are they in space.
Yeah.
That's the thing, because Dark Phoenix took place. What I think it was like over 3 or 5 years worth of comics.
Oh yeah.
So it wasn't like, and that's the thing. The big mistake that they always make with these is they take these like multi-year,
Hmm.
multi-crossover comics and just try to condense them down into a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
And they have to cut so much out, a lot of exposition, a lot of build up, and a lot of like character development that like that. God, my brain shut off for a second.
It's okay.
It's like Cyclops and Jean.
Yeah.
They're in Apocalypse together, and I think that's it. Like that's the first time we see those, right? Is in Age of Apocalypse is Jean and Cyclops.
I think so. Because they're not
So
they're in the other one, but in the future, or are they dead in Days of Future Past by that point?
yeah, both of them
Oh,
are
they're both
dead.
dead because of
Yeah,
3. So yeah,
Apocalypse
that's
is
right.
because they go
Yeah,
shopping for the first time. That's when they have the
right.
Quicksilver scene.
So between then and Dark Phoenix, we're supposed to like, I'm always a big fan of show don't tell kind of thing,
Hmm.
and it's like so we're just supposed to assume that they're in love now and they're inseparable and everything, and
I mean, with like arguably 10, almost 10 years, sure, I could believe it, but I agree with you. Show me something. I'm getting really tired of, and this is Cody. This is like what we were talking about yesterday with Jurassic World. Is it's just like I walk into a movie and you tell me enough time has passed to where like some kind of shit has occurred, and we're just gonna act like that's fine. And I'm like, well, I mean, show me a bit of it or an example of it, maybe like just have even a scene where she's like, yeah, Scott gave this to me after we got back from Egypt or something, and it's like a little necklace or just some stupid little crappy scene like that to just be like, here you go. Like they have clearly been on an incline in their relationship since the events of Apocalypse. And it's like, okay, cool. But when you're just like, yeah, they're together because they're supposed to be, because the comic book said they're supposed to be. It's like, well, okay, I guess. I can't fight you, but okay.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually show proof that they're like having a thing. Show proof that, actually like build up the romance and everything. You can't just go, "Hey, they're they like each other." Well,
Right.
that's great. They went shopping. Show me more than that. Then we got Captain Handyman in the chat again. Oh, you motherfucker. Gene not strong like Bree. Bree is best and you bully. Okay. Thanks, Captain Handyman. Appreciate it, bud.
Oh, okay.
Anyways. No, like I think the movies with the new X-Men lineup, it's one of those things where yeah, that's cool and I see what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
But don't beat
Mm.
us upside the head with the new cast. Like especially because you haven't done it right. Like they
You
they don't
the
look like adults at all remotely. Like they should at least have some sort of resemblance to the other cast.
And it's kind of
But
like this
you
is the
don't.
new cast. You will love them or else.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
they suck. And Cyclops looks like a little boy. So
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure he's not going to grow another 6 inches and gain 100 pounds of muscle. Like,
Right.
Like
Yeah.
Cyclops is supposed to be insanely fit,
Yeah.
and he's supposed to look like a man, and he looks like a little kid.
Scott Summers is 6'2", and I think he's like 225 or 230 pounds or something like that.
Damn, dog.
Yeah, he's a big man. And the only
But
reason I know this is
Commander.
because of action figures.
But I mean, it's kind of one of those things where I wouldn't mind it so much, at least for one movie or two, if we weren't doing it in such a way where it was like, oh yeah, I have to believe, because you got to introduce them because you're still playing with the same timeline but different.
Mhm.
So it's like, okay, fine, Cyclops has to be there, Jean Grey and Storm have to be there. You're going to introduce them in different ways, whatever.
Mhm.
But it's like when you're churning out movies year after year after year and you're trying to use the same actors, they're not going to age 10 years in 1 year. So you got to make your movie kind of take place almost
Yep.
immediately after,
Mhm.
or you're going to have to wait a bit, or you find different people to do it,
You
or just
see-
make your movie not do that.
That's the same thing I said. That was the biggest. Just to go on this quick little note and come back to the conversation, that was the biggest thing. My biggest hang up, I should say, between the Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones was Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
It's like what is it, like an 8-year gap or something like that between
Yeah,
episode 1 and
something.
2, and Natalie Portman looks the same.
Yep.
Because if they'd had a younger person play her and then have Natalie Portman, I'd have been on board. But I'm like, that's the same girl.
Oh yeah, and I mean that's one of the big complaints about like 1 into 2 is as far as like major overarching start at episode 2 and it seems like a little bit more normal. Like there's nothing that's explained in episode 1 that 2 doesn't rehash. I like 1 better than 2 personally, but as far as like the Padme Anakin romance is kind of too important to the plot to like not have, and it makes a lot more sense if I can just pretend that Natalie Portman was also a kid when Anakin was a kid
Right.
and think that they met as children as opposed to like one of them being 9 and the other one being like 14 years old and going from there. It's a little weird, and you're totally right because she doesn't age, and it is a little jarring to see Anakin was a short little kid, and now he's taller than her, and she's just still the same Natalie Portman with a better job.
To be fair, I mean, if you look at Natalie Portman now, she still looks pretty much the same.
Right. But
Yeah,
see,
I mean,
that's
yeah.
the thing. She doesn't age.
Yeah.
But that's like we were saying with the X-Men movies. Like this is like, so we've said it already. And First Class is in the '60s, and in the '90s, James McAvoy looks the same.
He just has less hair. That's it.
He has negative hair now.
But even like I think Michael Fassbender's a great example of it too, right? It's like not like he's getting older. And that kind of I don't want to segue too much into it, but what do you guys think about this like artificial like aging up, aging down stuff we're starting to see in movies? And then do you guys think it would like have helped or hurt X-Men as a whole if they did that to fill this 10-year problem?
I think it would hurt him.
Yeah, I feel like it's good in things like Ant-Man when there's a flashback and you see young Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
I think that's okay, but if you do the entire movie, the entire budget's going to go to the effects department. I mean, it does for most superhero movies anyway, but it's like I don't know, and it ages poorly. Like if you I watched Rogue One last week for the first time in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Grand Moff Tarkin did not age well.
No, which is shocking because I thought this. I watched it pretty recently too, and I thought the same thing because I remember seeing it in theaters, going, "Wow, that it wasn't perfect. I still know it's CG, but I was like, that was pretty well done. It's impressive." And in now watching it in 2020, I'm kind of like,
That's definitely
it's a
CG.
cartoon. Yeah, it's not really there anymore. No matter how dark you try to make it around him, it's just not working.
But yeah, I feel like if they tried to age them,
Mm-hmm.
Like what they oh god, I don't know. I think this would even be worse. I don't know why almost said it, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Um, I was gonna say, well, maybe they should have had it told through flashback. Maybe have like the adult actors who played like Jean Grey as an adult, like
Yeah.
say what was going on, and then tell the story with the younger actors. But I think that'd be even more hokey because that'd be like a
That
really
would
long
be.
Family Guy episode with superpowers.
Yeah. And I mean that the weird thing is though they kind of almost that's what I was expecting Dark Phoenix to end as because they set up all of the rest of them after Days of Future Past as Patrick Stewart
Mm-hmm.
telling Hugh Jackman, "Oh man, some crazy shit happened in the last few years. Check it
Mm-hmm.
out." And like it ends, it pans off the mansion and we're done.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was kind of waiting for like Dark Phoenix to end and maybe like the post credits bit be we're back in that office. He's
Mm-hmm.
finishing the story with Hugh Jackman and he's like, so there you have it. And he's like, holy shit. But then it wouldn't make sense because Jean was in Days of Future Past. So the movies already kind of contradict the future because it at the end of it, like spoilers for Dark Phoenix, but Jean disappears. Like she's gone.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say she's dead, but she like becomes part of the Phoenix Force or whatever and leaves the planet or some shit. I don't know. But it's just kind of like, okay, well, you'd have to have a movie to fill that gap at least. You're kind of going on like missing link territory of like, okay, how do I make this work with that? But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't, I was just kind of curious about your guys' thoughts on it because I know it's being used a lot more. Like, um, what's it called? I
The
think, holy shit, what's his name? Just said the name of the movie. This Captain Handyman guy just said the name, the stinking movie, Captain Marvel. That's it. They do that with like Sam Jackson and what's his name, uh,
Clark,
Clark.
Greg
Yeah,
Clark,
yeah, Greg
or
Clark.
Clark Gregg, some whatever his name is.
Whatever. He has two first names. That's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Agent Coulson.
Agent Coulson. Thank you. So like they do it with Nick Fury and Agent Coulson, and I think for that movie, it's probably more like practical in some regards. Like Coulson's clearly wearing a piece, like a hair piece. It's
Mm-hmm.
definitely not. They're not CGing hair, thank God. But as far as I could tell, for the most part, and it was probably really light CG, kind of like how CG was originally meant to be, to just clean up shit. But I can't imagine them like doing a Tarkin for an entire movie to make James McAvoy look like Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
He also doesn't have the same accent either, so
No, he doesn't.
Oh,
it's
it's
kind of
weird.
hard to believe that it's actually Professor X.
Yeah, that's true. That
Yeah.
was the one thing that Days of Future Past did beautifully. They basically retconned the Last Stand,
Oh yeah,
and
which was
they
great.
they kind of wiped the slate clean. And that was something that we were going to talk about, or I was going to talk about
Hmm.
when he said they passed the torch beautifully. They're like, this is the new team. The old team is done. This is it's a nice. They've closed the book on Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart and all of them. And then the very next movie, they're like, "Hey, you want to meet new X Men?
Yeah,
Here's
yeah.
another new team." It's like, no, 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 no. We just got used to fucking Nicholas Holt as Beast and everything else. Like,
I know that was really upsetting. Like I
how
was good with them.
how does Nicholas Holt become fucking Frasier?
Yeah, that
That's
was
a great.
just like the worst fucking casting choice ever.
I think it's fucking hilarious because you gotta kind of wonder, like, with a lot of these people, how do they become who they are? Like, it just is. But with Nicholas Holt becoming
Kelsey Grammer.
Kelsey Grammer, thank you. Um, that's just, and it's also the fact that like Kelsey Grammer went through all that makeup and shit to become
Mm-hmm.
Beast for that movie. It is one of the funnier points I think of all the X-Men movies is just
Mm-hmm.
knowing that.
I think, despite all the flaws, I think he did a really great Hank McCoy.
Yeah,
Oh
he
yeah,
did.
Like I bought Kelsey Grammer hook, line, and sinker in X
same.
three. But that's the thing. Like there are good parts about that movie. The Juggernaut is not one of them.
Yeah. No, he's not. That I
Uh,
think Deadpool did the Juggernaut a little bit better.
Way better.
I'm not even a Deadpool fan. Like I really
Yeah,
don't like those movies, but I liked the Juggernaut in that movie a lot better.
same.
Minus the whole electrical cord and the butthole thing.
Yeah,
That
and I
was
mean, I
great.
think at the end of the day, that's sort of the theme of Deadpool, right? Is the
Hmm.
absurd. So
Just
it worked.
yeah.
Um,
See, that's Cable is this is well known to me.
huh,
Cable is my favorite Marvel character, let alone my
Right.
favorite X Men. And that was one of my big. The one thing I loved about Deadpool 2, because it is an X Men movie at the end of the
Yeah.
day, was that they had Cable in it because he is my favorite. But that's also what made me mad is that Cable is the one that led the X Force, and actually it's because of Cable that we even have Deadpool because they used New Mutants, which was not Cable's comic necessarily. He was introduced in New Mutants '87, and they introduced Deadpool as kind of a foil to the X Force that
Oh,
Cable
okay.
is leading. So it's kind of like we don't have Deadpool without Cable, and they kind of flipped it. Which
Hmm.
is, I understand. Cable's not an A-lister. He's not a household name like Deadpool is, but
Yeah.
so I get it, but I still feel slighted.
Fair enough. I mean, I enjoy the Deadpool movies. I'm definitely not a Deadpool head person.
Mm-hmm.
They were good enough. I think the first one is so much better than the second one, though. But yeah, I liked at least how they were doing Cable and Deadpool's sort of dynamic through the
Mm-hmm.
movie. Like that was enjoyable to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Speaking of New Mutants and X Men, though, what do we? How do we feel about the New Mutants movie that's coming out?
Oh man, I
I
want to
I,
see it.
I want to see it. I've said before that they've pushed it back so much that they
Mhm.
should just mail people a free DVD of it.
That's similar to what me and Thomas were saying last week.
Yeah,
We were talking about this, and I pretty much was like, yeah, they've pushed it back so much, like you just said. They should just put it on streaming service and be like, all right,
seriously.
fucking have fun with it. Like, put it on Netflix or something.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I feel like yeah, throw it up on Disney Plus or Hulu or whatever. I'm kind of wondering if maybe Disney doesn't want to do that because they're scared of what like they obviously know what the movie has in it, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I
Put
think
it on Hulu.
well, this is the thing, right? It's your Marvel property, your superhero X-Men thing. You have X-Men TV shows, so wouldn't you want your movie on Disney Plus? But oh wait, this is like a kind of graphic horror movie, so where do
Hulu.
you want to put it,
Well,
right?
I, I
So
I feel like it's a little more than just that. Like, I definitely feel that's part of it. Like, because it doesn't fit the Disney image. Not that Disney's had really the best track record of having a good image since
yeah,
before, the 90s.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
Of course they
but
do.
yeah, they've never had anti-gay things happen in their park. They've never had anti-Semitism in their movies. That's a myth.
Yeah, it's not like Songs of the South ever happened or anything like that.
Yeah, Mr. Bluebird on my
Mhm.
shoulder. I
They're
actually
so
had that.
squeaky clean, man.
I had that VHS tape as a kid.
Really? I
I
knew
didn't
all the
know that at the
songs from
time.
it. I knew all the songs from it, but I never knew what it was attached to. And then I learned about the infamous Songs of the South, and I was like, that's gotta be super awkward that they still play those songs in the park.
Hmm.
Or at least they used to. I don't know if they do anymore.
Yeah. But I feel like part of it is since it was already done when Disney acquired it, I
Mhm.
feel like there's a lot of money things going on in the back. Like
For
people have
sure.
to get paid or haven't been paid, or I mean, if the case is that because the actors get paid regardless if the movie's made or not, they get paid
Hmm.
usually up front.
Right.
So they've already been paid. The people producing the movie have probably already been paid, but I'm thinking it's all the producers, the investors have to get a kickback from it.
Right.
And I feel like maybe there might be something in writing saying, if the movie doesn't do so well, the company or whatever will pay up to this amount to ensure they get their money back or whatever.
Mm.
Maybe. And Disney probably is like hurting financially considering all the monopoly shit that they've bought up. And
Yeah.
they probably can't pay it or they don't want to.
Yeah. I also wouldn't be surprised if they're really taking a gamble, especially with all like the events going on right now. Like they have had to had yeah they've had to close both of their parks at least
Mm-hmm.
in the states. I'm sure that's kind of giving them a huge financial hit.
Mm-hmm.
On top of like you said, they kind of have monopolized a lot of movies. If movies aren't coming out and no one's able to go see them, you're taking a big hit financially. Of crap, how do I get these movies out to where people are watching them?
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they're kind of trying to bank on, yeah, New Mutants has been really pushed back, pushed back. We could release this, and no matter what, a bunch of people will go see it because it's been so long. I mean, here's hoping that
Mm-hmm.
happens for them, but I think they're banking on maybe a big box office hit, whether the movie's good or not, just because of kind of the infamy around it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I
I
mean,
personally
that'd be a
think
good strategy for now.
it'd be good, but if this goes on too long, you're just losing more and more money. You're going to lose more you're going to gain from any box office hit of New Mutants, because half the people aren't going to go see it because they're going to be like, what the hell is New Mutants? Oh, do you mean like the X-Men? Well, they aren't the X-Men, and
They
you're
will
just going to get
release it and
confused.
change the title like 2 weeks after it's been released.
Exactly. Didn't what's it called do that?
Mm-hmm.
The Birds of Prey
Birds
movie?
of Prey.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was never called Birds of Prey. It was called Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
So, but or no, sorry, it was called Birds of Prey. Now it's called Harley Quinn.
Yeah, it's called like Harley Quinn something Emancipation or something, and then it's
something
like
that'll never fit on a marquee.
right, and then colon and the Birds of Prey or something like that. It's like,
Right.
okay, whatever. I mean, it's the same movie. I don't care what you call it, but I didn't see it. I heard it wasn't bad, but I didn't see it.
Nah, I didn't see it. I have no interest in seeing it.
Yeah,
It's pretty bad that people, like, if you asked everybody now, I can ask you guys and I'll probably guess your answer, but like, who do you prefer, the X-Men series from Fox or the DCEU?
Oh, Fox.
Fox.
Yeah, it's just like I never thought we'd live in a world where we'd be getting Superman and then a Batman versus a Superman movie and Wonder Woman and Aquaman, and we'd all prefer X-Men over all of that. It's like, damn.
Well, DC just struggled to they were doing the wrong thing. They were trying to keep up and get up to Marvel's level 10 years after Marvel already started. So it was just sort of, I think anyway, I don't remember when Man of Steel came out, but when they started doing, I mean, I personally kind of like Man of Steel. Like when it came out, I was like, this is cool. It's like a darker Superman movie. We're jumping straight to Zod. It's more or less believable. That's fine. But when it came out, like after that, I didn't see Batman vs Superman in theaters. I saw it a long time after, and I think it even had all that deleted shit in it. And I was like, this wasn't great. Like this arguably needed a movie in between, because it feels like this is a lot of setup for the Justice League that could have been stretched out over like 2 or 3 more movies. But I mean, arguably it could have been a lot worse, but it wasn't great. And then I like Wonder Woman fine. Like there's nothing wrong with it, but I realized the ones that I like are the ones that are entirely kept out of all the other crap, right? Like you're not doing a silly interlinkage shit. You're just, here we are doing this Wonder Woman thing in World War One. We're not even fucking around with Superman. Like who gives a shit? Fine with me. I think it could have really gone. I think it could have been fine. Just do a slower paced set of universe and you're good. But they screwed the pooch.
Oh yeah, that's what's crazy is probably my favorite DCEU movie so far is Aquaman, and the thing is that they had him become Aquaman in Aquaman, even though he was already Aquaman in the Justice League movie.
Yeah, that right there. It's like clearly Aquaman should have just come out first. Like you could have just made that movie come out before Justice League. Jumping on Justice League too early was weird. I mean, I don't know. It just I guess the thing that bothers me a lot too with DC in general is there's so much of this like release the Snyder cut and all that stuff. And it's like, that's all fine and good, but I shouldn't have to do that. Like I shouldn't have to get a more cohesive movie out of some special director's cut that you want released that got screwed over by the production company and all that stuff. Better or not, whatever. But I mean, just watching Batman versus Superman with all the deleted crap, a lot of the complaints people had, it was kind of removed because the deleted scenes covered it. Made that movie way too fucking long to really care for, but it was there, and I'm like, you just make your damn movie make sense. Don't make it all a fight scene and you're good.
Take out the bit about Martha. That was I didn't mind BVS so much, but again, that's other than Darkseid, like Doomsday is Superman's like, that's his fucking apocalypse. That's his, I mean,
he kills him in the comics and in the movie. It's like, yeah, that I liked. I liked that ultimately Superman does die. Like that was I like that angle going forward, but I don't know. Justice League could have done better with how they handled it.
So what do you think's better, BVS or X-Men Last Stand?
Oh God,
Last Stand.
Yeah,
it's more cohesive of a movie. It just makes more sense. Even if I don't like it, it just makes more sense.
Yeah, the big thing that Last Stand did to itself was have too many characters.
Mm-hmm.
It just, I think they knew it's like it was their last X-Men movie, so let's pull out every fucking mutant that we can. And I think that's where it really flopped. Cause that's when you, I like to think of it as like your dialogue is like a stick of butter, and then your movie is like a slice of bread or something. You know, you can cover the slice of bread. It's good. You know, you have yourself a nice piece of toast, but then each additional few characters, that's like another slice.
Right.
And then they just pull out an entire goddamn French loaf and they're like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
So all
And then
they
they
had was
still
this,
only have the one sliver of butter just kind of
yeah,
going.
they gave themselves basically the little like serving cup thing you get at like a breakfast diner,
Yeah.
and it was just kind of like it was bad.
No,
It's
I
hard
think,
to it's hard to believe that we got an X-Men movie that basically sucked ass. Like not I would say the only other ones that sucked ass were Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix. But it's like you went on from having such a great first X-Men movie, and then you went to X2 and blew everybody away with it. And then you come back with 3, and 3's supposed to be like, holy fuck, we're supposed to get some cool shit. Maybe Phoenix. And then it just ended up very, very awkward and odd.
No,
And then,
it's really shocking that like we decided because you know if you look at like the whole history of superhero movies, at least from like the '90s onward, you know it's not great. Like movies were kind of whatever until Spider-Man really came out, I think, or until Blade came out. I think some people would argue, and that kind of got it popular. And then Spider-Man came out, made it accessible for like kids and stuff. And then all of a sudden it was like, holy shit, we could do superhero movies. Like this is nuts. And you know, X-Men had been out by then, and everyone was really cool with the superhero genre being on screen. But I mean, it's almost a miracle that after you know Spider-Man 3 and X-Men 3 that we even got Iron Man to get off the ground at that point. I mean, those two movies flopped hard as far as reviews go. But I mean, could you imagine if they made like a completely like critically and just publicly complete trash like mainline Marvel movie at this point? I mean, could you imagine if like Endgame was garbage as like a like Endgame to Apocalypse kind of type comparison?
Yeah. Well, I feel like that day's coming sooner than later, honestly.
Same.
I think that's going to be the Immortals
The Eternals.
or Eternals. What did I say?
You said
Immortals?
Immortals.
Same thing.
Yeah, I mean it's like
I
a
don't-
synonym, so it's fine.
That's just too much shit. I don't know.
I'm just burnt out. Like I mean, arguably that whole universe can just be done with End. Like I'm a fan of Silver Surfer, so maybe if you do like a Galactus thing, like that'd be cool. But it's not gonna be the same because those movies are a slow burn to get to Endgame, and you know it carries everybody with you. You got mini bosses the whole way, and then you get Thanos. They beat Thanos, and it's like we saved the universe. Cool. Like I don't see how you get bigger than that. Like you can go like multiverse or something, but at that point, do I really give a shit? Like I'm burnt out on it, and I think the next one is going to have to be either super unique, like Eternals either has to be super unique and really different, or like just I don't know, it's going to flop. As far as my opinion goes, because I just don't care. I don't want to see another one of these formulaic Marvel movies and just be bored the whole time.
I'm excited about Doctor Strange just solely on the fact that he can introduce different superheroes and he can time travel and he can do all this cool shit and go to different dimensions. And I think that would be really cool. It's a fun premise just thinking about you have Doctor Strange, who is arguably one of the most powerful mutants, or not mutants, superheroes. And he could honestly just go back in time and be like, hey, Scarlet Witch, I need you real quick. And it's like, what? Come on. Or Iron Man, I need you real fast. I need you to help me with something. Okay. Like, and you could also make it a horror movie if you really wanted to. So I heard that's what they're doing, but I have no idea.
If they go the whole way with it, I'll like it. I mean, I like the first Doctor Strange because it was a bit different than the other Marvel movies. Like it wasn't all right, there's the big bad guy, time to beat him up with my superpowers. It was like, how can I cleverly figure this shit out? And it works. And it was funny. It had good humor and stuff for what it was. And I don't know, I enjoyed it because it was different. The next one, I can only hope does that, but I don't know. I mean, in the comics, they kind of make some clear, like, divisions between the space stuff, the New York stuff, and the magic stuff, and they kind of overlap every now and then, and you get some cool things. But the movies are sort of making all of that one thing, and it's making the settings, it's making the stakes, it's making everything just one big blob. So, like, if they can start pulling everything apart again, that'd be great. Like, I'd be super stoked to see we're dealing with the magic stuff again. Fuck all with the Guardians of the Galaxy shit. Like, we're doing magic things, sure. And if they can double down and make me scared when I watch it, I'll love it. I don't think they got the balls to do it, but it'd be cool.
Yeah, I think that the MCU is kind of in its death throes for the next few years. Is like coming from something like I saw Iron Man in 2008 when it came out. I saw every Marvel movie in theaters, mostly on opening night when they came out.
Yeah.
And I read not all the comics, but I read enough to know enough. You know what I mean? Because I kind of found my favorite heroes and I'd read their lines. I didn't read everything. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah,
But
same.
I collect the toys. I watch the cartoons. And I'm done with the MCU. Like it's just, it was an 11-year time frame. I gave 11 years of my life to the MCU, going to see the movies, buying the merchandise and the like. And Endgame was a nice bookend.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, okay, I'm done. Like I know Thor's still around. I know some of these heroes are still around in the movies, but I'm done. I'll catch them if I catch them, but I'm not going out of my way anymore.
That's exactly how I feel. It was a great, like, you finished off Tony Stark and Steve Rogers arc. Like, I'm cool. I'm good. I don't feel like I need to see more. And maybe that's where they fucked themselves, is they made a movie that wrapped all the stuff that needed to wrap up. And it's like, yeah, you can make sequels, but they just kind of like, that's what I didn't like about the new Spider-Man. Well, one of the things I didn't like about the new Spider-Man was just like, this kind of comes off as a little it just comes off disingenuous. It's like you wanted to wrap it all up with this. I mean, you had a great ending in Endgame. Like, let it be. I'm not a big fan of this new Spider-Man anymore. I don't really care about the plot they were screwing around with. It could have been kind of cool, and it wasn't. And I don't know. It just came off kind of disappointing. And I'm like, this is the end of that whole arc. Well, that's kind of lame.
Mm-hmm. I consider that whole movie like just one really long end credit scene. Like I don't consider it part of like the first. What are they calling it now? Because it's not like phase 3. There's a name for that whole first chunk, first era, or
like
something
the
like
Infinity something.
Yeah, the Infinity Saga or something.
That's it. I think it's that. Yeah.
Like I consider kind of that Spider-Man movie, not to make a pun, but kind of like a web or a link between the next two. I don't consider it part of that. So, I mean,
I don't think I can and enjoy it. I mean, it really kills that whole Infinity Saga if it ends on Spider-Man, whatever, Far From Home.
Mm-hmm.
Or it just kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. So yeah, a link between the two is probably a solid way to look at it.
I don't know with it. I think here in the next, by the end of, what are they calling it, phase 4 or whatever, by the end of phase 4, I think a lot of normies will probably stop watching. Mm-hmm. Now, they've probably developed, like every show, like Game of Thrones or, you name a show that's been on for a while. Yeah. A lot of people want to see how it ends, and so they jump on the bandwagon at the last second, and then they binge it and they catch up. And that's usually how it ends. Like, okay, now we're done. Well, now they're going to keep going. And a lot of us that have been with it for so long are done. The normies aren't going to care because, like, oh, wait, there's more?
Yeah.
And they're not going to invest it. So I feel like it's just going to eventually kind of crumble under its own weight.
I think so, too, yeah.
There's nowhere for them to go. Like, they could do Galactus, sure, but it's...
But it burns out to be the same thing, if not a less, like, smaller stakes, right? Because the Galactus arc is just, we're going to eat Earth. And it's like, well, we got to stop him. And it's like, well, you guys saved the entire universe. This really shouldn't be that difficult for you at this point.
Right.
Yeah, they've
Um,
already gone like that high as far as the stakes goes, so you
right,
can't
and
really
that's the
go too
problem.
much higher. You've already defeated the most dangerous being in the whole entire universe. So Galactus, I mean, I'm sure he probably even wiped out Galactus with a snap, and we just didn't know it.
And that's
I
where
mean,
it's a problem. This is the same problem to bring it back to X-Men that Sal you brought up with Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix is you want to go with your Apocalypse level bad guy, and then what's your next move? How do you make a sequel to stopping the end of the universe or whatever? I mean, you could go, well, Thanos only wanted to destroy half the universe. This guy wants to destroy the whole universe, and it's like now this is just insulting. Like, come on.
See, that's the thing is like Galactus. He's not. He's Galactus, the eater of worlds or whatever. But it's not like he does it maliciously. He's
Exactly.
a galactic being. He has to sustain his life by draining planets of everything. So it's
And
like,
I think if these movies actually did take an angle like going and looking at, if we're gonna do Galactus, taking Galactus and going, this dude's not evil like Thanos was. Like, look at your audience dead in the eye and make that comparison if you have to. But it's like Thanos had this kind of crazy maniacal move going on.
right, he had a god complex.
Right. And Galactus arguably is like on that god tier of a being, and he just has to eat planets in order to survive. To him, eating a planet is no different than you eating a sandwich. Like, it's no big deal. And it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, if you make that comparison and you can kind of make your movies, I guess the only word I could really think of is a little more woke to stuff like that, then maybe you'll get something a little bit more like mentally intriguing than what you have. But
Right.
if you're just like bad guy to bad guy to bad guy, your movie's just a monster of the week, and that's what kills a lot of like sci-fi TV shows and shit. Is it's just like, oh, this was our monster that we explained in 10 seconds at the beginning of the episode, and we beat him by the end. Hooray! It's like, well, fuck, I don't care. Why do I need 20 of these? Like, who cares?
I think unless I say the MCU, if they're going to adapt like the X-Men, putting those type of people in the MCU and stop focusing on like the Hulk or whatever, which I don't think they should stop, but I don't really like Mark Ruffalo, so whatever. But I think that the way they should do superhero movies now is stop trying to make this huge like problem, like, oh, this guy's trying to take the world over, this guy's trying to take over this planet, and then it's going to affect Earth or some shit. Like, just keep it on a smaller scale, because everyone likes the Ant-Man movies. I'm pretty sure I'm safe to say that.
I don't care for the second one, really. Like, it just was boring and whatever. But I like the first one. It was, again, unique. It was different.
They're grounded movies. They're not too huge a scale, and they know what they are. So they're very self-aware that it's a guy that shrinks. He's going to fight another guy that shrinks or something. Like, they get what's happening, and a lot of people gravitate towards those because they're not these huge, like, grand, like, Thanos and a whole army popping out of portals, and then they have these spaceships and they're blowing up the Stark or Avengers base and taking over planets. Like, it's
Leviathans coming through and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if they make a smaller scale superhero movie where, like, if they actually did Spider-Man right, it'd be like, okay, you're gonna fight Electro, you're gonna fight Scorpion, and you're gonna go fight Venom at the very end, and it's gonna lead to the next movie. Cool. Like, that's what I want to see. I think if they played it smart and played it safe doing that, you would get way more people in the theaters. You'd get a way better feedback than just like, hey, every movie has to be a world-ending scenario. It's like, it doesn't. Like, Spider-Man PS4 had one of the best stories of all time, and it didn't even deal with the end of the world. It was
barely dealt with the city being under attack.
They dealt with the end of New York City, and then possibly more to come. But they focused mainly on that.
Game yet on it. Now that I think about it.
No, it's a great game. I suggest you finish it. It has a good plot. But I think you bring up a good point, Cody, because, like, I mean, I'm not trying to be, like, all, like, fanboying stuff, because I know some people get that way about these movies, but, like, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, like that, I think the reason that those were so good to a lot of people is because Peter Parker is an accessible character. Like he's not just Spider-Man beating up bad guys. He's like a
He's the everyman of
loser.
the
Yeah,
Marvel.
he exactly. And he's relatable. You can like go, "Oh yeah, that does suck. Like high school does suck or being a broke college student really sucks." And, "Oh, you lost your uncle. That sucks too." Like you can relate to his problems, and he has a lot of human problems. Arguably, as Spider-Man, he's kind of king of the world, and there's really nothing wrong with him. But as Peter Parker, which you see a lot, there's a lot of relatable shit. When it comes
Mm-hmm.
to people like Iron Man and Tony Stark, it's like Tony Stark's problems, I kind of scoff at a little bit. I'm like, dude, you're rich as fuck. You're a superhero. You have like a romantic like a relationship with somebody that cares about you. Like your problems are either entirely rooted in supervillains or just like a rich person's problem that I kind of can't relate to and don't care about.
Or like a business like aspect of it.
Right. And it's
Like
just like I don't care about this. And you create, and I think something the MCU they tried to do with this new Spider-Man that didn't really work out, I think because they didn't go to that loser level strong enough in my opinion that the Raimi
Mm-hmm.
movies did. And even the Amazing Spider-Man movies tried to do is just like Tom Holland's Spider-Man is just he's a kid and everybody either doesn't care about him or he's friends with everybody and there's no problem. He's popular enough. He's like a neutral high school student. And I'm like, Peter Parker was a fucking loser in high school. Like that was the point, was so that you relate to him having to deal with bullies and shit. And this it's just like I don't understand why Flash picks on him, because Flash just kind of comes off as a douche, not even like a big bad bully. He's just kind
he's
of
a DJ.
dick. Yeah, he's just a dick
Mm-hmm.
though. That's it. It's like, well, I'm more like this kid sucks. Why do people? And nobody seems to like Flash, so it's like the whole thing just falls apart. I end up feeling a little bit more bad for Flash because I'm like, oh, this kid's like dumped at the airport by his mom. Like his mom wouldn't even meet him at the airport at the end of Far From Home. Like I feel
He's
kind of
like Eric
bad for him.
Cartman.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, I shouldn't feel bad for Flash. I should feel bad for Peter, but instead, Peter has a really supportive mom. We're not even talking about Uncle Ben. He's got a girlfriend now. He's got a best friend. He's got best friends. He's not really struggling with his powers anymore. It's just like, I don't care. And when you take, like you pointed out, Sal, like your everyman character, and you make them, again, not an everyman person, there's no one to relate to in your universe. So I don't really care about anybody anymore.
Peter Parker's problems are also very minute. They're like
Right.
whatever. Like, oh wow,
Half
the
the
girl
time
you don't,
Tony fixes it. It's
like
like, oh, you got a
girl
problem? Here's
you
the money.
the girl you like doesn't know that you like her, and you don't know if she likes you or not. Wow, big
Mm-hmm.
fucking whoop compared to the other Spider-Mans. And it's like, okay, you legitimately like you can't keep a job, you can't make class on time because you're a Spider-Man, and you're trying to take care of your aunt,
Yeah,
and
like
you're also
Spider-Man as
trying
a
to,
problem would be
and you're also
great.
trying to make Mary Jane your fiance. So
Mm-hmm.
those are all way bigger problems than I'm in high school and I have this math competition to go to, but I don't know if I should do it because I'm fighting Vulture right now. So it's like, what?
And it also makes you forget that Peter Parker is actually super smart. Like that's one thing I really fucking hate about these new ones is up until maybe the end of this latest movie, there's really not a lot of, hey, by the the only way they explain it away is that he goes to a magnet school for smart kids. And it's just like, okay, cool. But he doesn't actually do anything smart. Whereas in the other movies, and this is probably I have two positive criticisms for the Amazing Spider-Man first one anyway, is they kind of just do away with the whole love problem, and they're like, yeah, him and Gwen Stacy are actually pretty cool. They got good chemistry. They eventually become a thing. That's cool. I don't need that because you're also giving me Peter Parker's kind of a loser, and even though he's not in the movie, which is weird, but he is, or he's treated that way. So it's like, okay, fine. But also, we get shown like Peter Parker's building shit. He's putting stuff together. Like he's making cool things because he is actually smart and is good at engineering things.
Yeah, he's making. Is that the one where he makes the web in the chemistry class?
Yeah, I think so. Because
Okay,
he
I
builds
remember
the
the scene.
ledge
I just don't
shield.
remember which movie it was in.
No, I think it's the Amazing Spider-Man 1.
Hmm.
But he does that, and I'm like, this is cool because in the first one we do get that he's like a geeky smart kid because he says stuff. But in the second one, we actually show him building shit. In this new stuff, Tony Stark's handing it to him. Like the thing he builds in the beginning is impressive, but it's garbage. And from that, like from Civil War on, it's pretty much, oh hey, yeah, you need something? No, it's all good. I got it, kid. Here you go. Here's a brand new suit that like dissolves into a tank when you don't want to wear it. Yeah, no,
Hmm.
you don't have to do anything. It's fine. And it's like even at the end of Far From Home, he's still using Tony Stark's shit, which arguably looks like anybody could. It doesn't look like it's that hard
Hmm.
to build a suit. You kind of just pick the pieces and press make, and it does it.
He 3D prints it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
that's one
that's.
thing I don't. Oh, go ahead, Sal.
Yeah, I was gonna say before we get too far off, when
Yeah.
we're talking about what they should do next for the MCU, I was gonna say what I'd be interested to see, like what might get me back on board, is if like post Endgame, Thanos is gone, they've saved the universe,
Mm-hmm.
all the big heavy hitters, like as annoying as she is, you have to acknowledge the fact that she is like probably the strongest Avenger left on the team, Captain Marvel.
Right.
Um, but people like her, Thor, like the big like I could kill you if I wanted to by looking at you guys,
Exactly.
have nothing left to do. Like
Yeah.
they can't go stop a bank robbery, and so they leave.
Mm-hmm.
And then we focus on street level heroes like the Daredevils and the Luke Cages, the people who couldn't necessarily fight someone like Thanos.
Right.
But crime doesn't stop. People still need help. There are still people trying to hurt as many people as possible, and focus on that and bring it down to a street level. And I think that'd be a lot more interesting and a lot more intriguing and would bring
Yeah.
people back.
No,
That's
I
one of
think
the
so.
reasons why Deadpool was such a big success. Like it's part of the X-Men franchise, and it's cool that it has the connection. But it's also Deadpool can't die,
Mm.
so he just goes around and he kills mobs and he fights criminals, and he
Mm.
just takes out like human traffickers and stuff like that. And then you have the whole Cable time travel story to where he's trying to save a mutant, like one kid. It's not
Mm.
like, oh, Deadpool, go fight Thanos. It's like, go save this kid. He needs your help.
Mm.
And like
And
you bring
yeah.
it down to that level, and it makes it way more relatable to people. It's like, wow, he needs to help this kid, and he's like, no matter how much shit he takes from the kid, and how many like times he gets shot or gets bricks thrown at him or whatever, like he still is fighting for the kid, and it's cool.
And you could do that with I mean, even with like Captain Marvel, because like I found that movie just boring, to be honest. And like how they definitely wrote themselves into a corner, like you were kind of pointing out, Sal, in Endgame, where it's like, oh yeah, she's like wicked powerful, and that kind of becomes a problem because it's like, well, she can beat anybody. There's no real enemy to fight. Make her go to space. Like just make her go to space, and she has to do something like save a kid, something simple because
She wanted
somebody
to do
asked
that.
her for it. But like my point is like, she's like, I'm gonna go save this kid or whatever, and then have it be kind of a twist, sort of similar to like in Thor Ragnarok, when it's like, I'm gonna throw my hammer at her, and she just catches it, and it's like, no, you're not, and then destroys it. Do something like that. There's some being out there that's comparable to Captain Marvel, and it grounds your character again. You reel her powerless in, you get the power creep gone. Do that with Deadpool and stuff. I think you're absolutely right. I think X-Men, like think of X-Men 2, this is a great example of a movie that kind of takes place in its own bubble, right? Like Stryker's like, I'm doing this shit to the mutants. The worst global level I think in that movie is using Xavier to kill the mutants or something like that. But it's sort of like you're not playing around with an enemy that's like, I'm going to destroy all life. You're really focusing on like Wolverine's vendetta mission, and like we're going to stop him, and it's like a personal thing for Wolverine, and that's how that's how it's delivered to you, and that's how you're digesting it, and that's how you're watching it. And it's enjoyable, it's relatable because this guy screwed this other guy and ruined his life, and people can feel that way. But yeah, I think when you get problems like Captain Marvel, sorry about that. You get problems like Captain Marvel because it's like your power creep because you have to have somebody who's strong enough to stop the bad guy to do this crazy thing, and then when you're done with them, yeah, you have to have them leave. You have to explain them away because it's like, fuck, what do you do after
Yeah.
that?
I mean, that's something very similar. I cannot remember where I read this, but it was they were talking about it was a fuck. I'm sorry. I should have been more prepared before I started opening my mouth.
I do that a
You're
lot.
good.
So it was about DC. It was someone from DC being interviewed. This is probably back in 2004, 5, 6, somewhere in there, early aughts, and they were talking about like how did they come up with villains for Superman? Like how because DC has a really bad habit of like making their characters godlike,
Hmm.
and then they're like, well, fuck, we have to make a villain even more powerful to beat them. And then they have to become more powerful, so it becomes this never-ending cycle. And that's how you end up with people like Superman, who can basically cure cancer and everything else.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what they did with Captain Marvel. They were so uh, wrapped up in trying to make her as OP as possible and make her the
Hmm.
biggest thing in the MCU that they kind of forgot. Oh yeah, we have Thanos.
Right. And that's
Like,
the thing that I think the Justice League cartoon show did really well by the end was you kind of get this dose of like Superman. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but like I think it's like the final
Yeah.
episode of that show. It's on YouTube. It's a pretty cool scene, but they're fighting Darkseid. Like Darkseid's attacking Earth. And
hmm
Superman is just looking at him and he's like, the hardest part about being Superman isn't like that there's always an enemy to fight or something. It's the fact that I can't kill people and my powers are so OP that if I just give someone a hug, they could die. So when I stop bad guys, I have to hold back. Like I can't just punch out a bank robber with full force or their head will explode. So and then he goes on to say like, but with you, Darkseid, like I know you can fucking take it. So like he goes all out and you get a cool fight between him and Darkseid. And
hmm
I think you could have angled Captain Marvel to do that because you do have that time depth to where she's like, yeah, I've had to do this, I've had to do that, whatever. But with Thanos, like, I'm going to go all out. And you could have like a pretty cool fight where ultimately, obviously, because of the plot of the movie, she has to sort of lose something, like gets in her way, whatever. And then Tony does
hmm
his thing. But you're making characters super OP. And this is the problem with Dark Phoenix that they solved by getting rid of Dark Phoenix, like having Jean ultimately decide, I'm not going to be this evil thing. I'm going to take out the bad guy with me, and they do, and it works. And that's the kind of shit you could do, or you could just have them accept that they're too strong, like Superman does, and just be like, I can't go all out with you because if I do, I'll kill you, and I am not the type of person that's going to kill you. Which I think
hmm
we see pretty good in Man of Steel because he has to kill Zod, and like the whole reason the fight goes on is because he doesn't want to kill Zod, and then he has to. And it's like a pretty heavy hit scene because at the end of the day, he doesn't like zap him with heat beams or freeze him with like ice breath or whatever. He just snaps his neck. And it's like you
hmm
could have done that the whole time, but like you are Superman. You don't kill people and you have to ultimately do it. And I think that's where I was stoked for the DC stuff because we are playing with that human element of you're playing with like morality and are you going to do this or not? And Marvel was just sort of like, minute we find Thanos, we're gonna cut his head off. 15 minutes in the end game, we cut his fucking head off, and everybody's like, "Wow, that was dark, but whatever." And let's keep going with the other 2.5 hours of our movie. Okay, what are we doing now? And
Time travel.
well, yeah, and it's like, well, we find Thanos, cut his head off again, and it's like, okay, like that's it. It doesn't hit as hard when you don't have something holding you back, and I think that's why like the Dark Knight movies were really good because you like the Dark Knight itself, like that movie, you're playing with this. You're not going to kill me because I'm the Joker and I'm crazy. And if you kill people, you're just like me. And Batman's like comes to the point where he holds the Joker's life in his hands and he's like, I'm still not who I am. And these Marvel movies, I can't think of a single one that does that in recent years off the top of my head. I mean, it's pretty much just blow them all to hell and we're good.
A
Problem
lot.
solved.
I know my favorite moments from like the X-Men movies was, and it shows Wolverine's like humanity, and in X-Men 2, when at the very like, towards the end, and he finally catches Stryker, and then he like takes the chains and he wraps him around a bunch of rocks, and then he like stabs him in the shoulder,
Mhm.
and he's basically like waiting to kill him. And he's like, "You've always been an animal," and he basically doesn't kill him because he's not an animal. He's a person, and
Oh, you know what?
he leaves him there. He ties him up and he just walks away. He could have killed him, but he didn't.
I can't believe I forgot about it, but we totally skipped over Logan in our X-Men list
Oh
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know. I love Logan. I thought it was great.
speaking of list, I got an article right here. Now, there's a bunch of them, but I picked out just this one. I figured we could review this one only. We don't have to go into all the different types of articles and websites. But so up here, I got all 12 X-Men movies ranked.
Oh
So
boy.
let's see if any of us agree with these.
All right.
So we already got Fassbender, who was pretty cool. I love the outfit, the costume from Days of Future Past too.
Yeah.
And then you got Dumbass right here. And then
There was a pun. I'd be remiss if I don't repeat it that I heard. And they asked, "Do you know why Magneto doesn't wear that suit anymore?" Because it was the Days of Fuchsia Past.
oh, damn, what a dad joke.
Get me a beer.
And then you got Daddy Logan.
Hell yeah.
So
that movie's. I think Logan's so fucking good. If it's not at the top, like right now, what do you guys think? Oh, wait, is this list gonna go bottom to top? Is
Yeah.
that what it's gonna be? Okay. Well, I think Logan needs to be at least number 2, in my opinion.
I have a feel like I would think that Logan would be number 1, but knowing how these lists go, it's probably gonna be number 2.
I say it's going to be about
number 1 will be some hot take that they'll try to explain.
Personally, I think it should be at least 3 or 4, just because I love number 1 and number 2 a lot. So those ones are still going to be number 1 and number 2. So
probably.
Yeah, I think it's going to be at least number 2. I want it to be number 1 personally, but again, like you said, how these lists go, I can see them putting X2 at the top or X1, X-Men at the top. I don't know.
we'll see.
They'll put like First Class at number 1 because it rebooted and gave us everything else.
Oh god!
So
it gave you everything you thought you wanted.
Right.
It's like, we know what you want. It's like, no, you don't. Number 12, X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's the worst. That arguably is the worst one. Yeah.
What's crazy is that I've never seen Dark Phoenix, but I feel like even though I've never seen it, that should be 12, and then Origins Wolverine should be 11.
No, I think Dark Phoenix, because as a whole, it at least operates within the universe they set up. X-Men Origins, when it came out versus when the rest of the movies happened, it makes no fucking sense. Like, just when it occurs, like in time versus when the X-Men movies happen, it doesn't make any fucking sense. You are also dealing with like people being younger than they were in the other movie, and it's only like 10 years difference or something like that. Like, it's really fucking weird. And you're introduced to a ton of characters who are nothings. And I mean, come on, it has Will.i.am in it as a main character who's giving exposition. I don't know about that, man. Like, I think it belongs at number 12.
I did like the Blob in that movie though.
Yeah,
that was funny.
Did you just call me Blob?
He's like, what? No.
And then a fight scene occurs.
Let's go. Number 11, X-Men Last Stand. Yeah, they're beating up on
it. Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I haven't seen Dark Phoenix, but
if Dark Phoenix is not the next one, then there's a problem. But I think you could really switch around X-Men Last Stand and Dark Phoenix, because at least, yeah, I mean, X-Men Last Stand ends on like we could keep making these if you want, but and then Dark Phoenix is like, we know we're done. We know what we did. We're fine. Like, at least it has that note of acceptance in it.
See, if you're just looking at that, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
but it's just like, okay, you have the X-Men. That's awesome. You have these dumb fucking soldiers. That's stupid. And then you have all these rejects. And it's like, what? It just seemed too, I don't know. It just didn't make sense. Like,
it didn't make sense for 6 people. Yeah, exactly. Have more X-Men. Where are the
you
other
have a mansion full of people, right?
Yeah, like that was the weird thing was they weren't. I think Halle Berry in that movie talks a little bit about how they need to protect the not X-Men mutants at the school. But I mean, they show you that in 2 pretty well. But it's like maybe by that point have some like B-list, C-list X-Men ready to go because you're only like that picture has what 6 people in it, 5 people in it. Like
You got Wolverine, you got Kitty Pryde. The fuck she gonna
who
do?
like runs in and is like, okay, I'm
Colossus.
gonna go save the kid. Like
Yeah.
Iceman and
Beast.
Storm.
Storm. Cyclops ain't in it because they have to fucking kill him. And that pissed me off almost more than Professor X dying. It's like, what are you doing?
This is gonna sound really dumb, mostly because it's coming out of my mouth. But when Cyclops died at the beginning of Last Stand, all I could think about was how they killed Johnny Cage in Mortal Kombat Armageddon in like the first 5 minutes. And I was like, they did it again! Because as in my youth, I was convinced that that was the same actor.
The cool guy with
Oh,
sunglasses.
You
That's
broke
not
my
dumb.
glasses.
You want to hear something stupid? Has nothing to do with anything we're talking about. But I didn't know pickles were cucumbers until like 2 years ago.
Hell yeah.
Wait,
Just-
what?
Just throwing that out there. I had no idea pickles were cucumbers.
The fuck do you think pickles came from, dude?
I thought they just like grew on a pickle bush or something. And then I mean I knew you like soaked them and marinated them in like vinegar and all types of seasoning, but
Yeah. You know
I
what that's
legitimately
called?
thought-
You know what that's called? It's called pickling. It is
I
an
know.
actual thing.
I know you
do
do it
stuff,
with beets
man.
or eggs or whatever, but I legitimately I thought that like there were pickles and then there were cucumbers. I thought they were two completely separate things.
No, you're not alone, Cody. I thought that for a long time too. It wasn't until I learned
Thank
that
you.
there was a process called pickling that I was
Yeah.
like, wait a second, because I thought pickles just grew as pickles and you put them in a jar to do that.
Well, that's what I thought.
Okay.
I thought it was like you pick pickles from a bush and then you marinate them. And because they're pickles and that was the process for pickles, I thought that just became the norm. Like that was
okay.
the word that just came from it. It's like we're gonna be making some pickled eggs, and it's like, oh, that's because they used to like to marinate pickles.
The pickle
and-
juice.
So
yeah.
that's what I thought. I had no idea. So
No, I mean it's fair. I'm just giving you shit. I mean, there's plenty of stuff I've thought that way about. For
dude,
things too.
I was at practice one day and I told I told my players that just as a joke, just to kind of lighten the mood, and they're just like, "Are you fucking kidding me, coach?" And I'm like, "Nope." And I'm like, "Damn, the high schoolers knew that, and I didn't."
You should have followed that up with, nope. Just like all of you think that you're good at baseball, now go run laps.
Ooh, sucks
I
to
should've.
suck, doesn't it, everybody? And just like be on a golf cart or something, ride next to him.
Well, my coach, my sophomore year in college, he bought a golf cart with the team or the program's money, just so he can ride his fat ass all the way around the campus,
Hell yeah.
not have to walk. So that was pretty cool. Number 10, Dark Phoenix. So,
Fair enough.
Okay.
and number 9, the Wolverine.
I was gonna say it better be the Wolverine.
Oh shit, I forgot about that one.
That movie was I
Very
liked
disappointing.
I liked that movie.
Yeah, same.
I enjoyed it right up until Silver Samurai showed up as a giant robot.
Yeah.
Yep.
That.
And then
same
they
for me,
had what's her name? Viper? Or,
Yeah.
Like she wasn't bad. Inherently she wasn't bad. It was the costume they put her in at the end. I was like, wow, you went with the lime green leotard. You went all in, didn't you?
Ooh. That's right. I
Like they go all in with that, but they keep the robot. It's like, why
That
don't
movie
you just make
totally-
him younger and put him in armor?
No, see that movie totally would have been fine if we're just doing like shit. Don't even. I don't know. I kind of liked up until the Silver Samurai. It's just Wolverine versus like the Yakuza. That's
Yeah.
fine with me. Like I got no problem with that. That was actually pretty cool. You got like the Silver Samurai angle where she talks about it, but no, I didn't really care if it happened or not. But yeah, the giant.
They should have just had the Silver Samurai just be like, oh yeah, like if he was gonna show up or whatever, just have like glimpses of the armor in the background, and he's like the head guy of the Yakuza.
Yeah, exactly.
And then at the end, he fights Wolverine while he's wearing it, but the stuff's made of adamantium and he can't cut through it. Makes it a lot more interesting. But no, they gave him a giant fucking robot.
Yeah, like I mean, they kind of do that, right? They like point out the armor, and they're like, "This is a silver samurai armor," and she says some little story about it, and I'm like, it would have been fine if you're the evil dad guy put on the armor at the end to fight Wolverine, and yeah, it did have like adamantium in it or something, and made it an actual problem, someone worthy to fight. But the whole grandpa not being dead and all that, like, yeah, whatever, like. It just got away from itself, I think, at that point. So that's a way to ground your movies, right? Have like do like the Nick Cage thing, like you were pointing out, Sal, and be like, yeah, like I'm fighting the mob and I'm a superhero, but I'm like, fighting the mob. Real problem.
They gave the Silver Samurai the Rhino treatment, as I like to call it. Just instead of developing the character in the suit, it's a fucking robot. It's like, what? Are you kidding me?
That shows up for the last 30 seconds that is in one of the trailers.
Yeah, no, I forgot about that movie. I think it's definitely probably in the right spot on this list, though. I think off the top of my head,
there were some cool parts in that movie, but just the ending, just like Sal said, it just really took me out of it. And I'm like, all right, he's getting shot with these spears. He's getting put in the ground, and it's getting super serious. And he's got that one Gollum-looking chick fighting alongside him. And then you got Viper. It's like, okay, robot samurai. It's like, it also makes me think of that one movie where Hugh Jackman is like Rock'em Sock'em Robots or whatever that movie is.
Oh, isn't
Real
it like
Steel
Real
or something?
Steel or something? Yeah.
Makes me think of that, and I'm just like,
I never saw it.
Just like don't. That movie could have had a great ending, and then it could have just fucking been one of the best ones. But no. Oh well.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't see Real Steel, but as far as Wolverine goes, at the time it came out, it was definitely in my top ones. I think just because I was like, that was really cool. That last part was weird, but the rest of it was still pretty cool, and like Japan and stuff. But
yeah. I remember seeing the DVD case like in your living room when we were playing video games and stuff.
No, it's cool. I mean, and you're dealing with, you're grounding your superheroes, and I think that's why it was more entertaining than other movies.
Apocalypse, that should be a lot lower.
You know what? Now that I think about it, I think flip Apocalypse and Wolverine for me straight up. I can see why, but I'd flip them.
Let me see. I would say Last Stand goes in Apocalypse. No, Last Stand goes in Wolverine spot. Apocalypse goes in Last Stand spot. And the Wolverine jumps up to 8. Does that make sense?
I still just would
flip that right?
Yeah, I got what you meant, I think.
Yeah, like Apocalypse goes to Last Stand spot. Last Stand comes to 9. Wolverine goes to 8.
Yeah, I'd still just flip Wolverine and Apocalypse, but yeah, that's about it.
I hate Apocalypse. I fucking hate that new cast. It is so bad.
I might move Apocalypse below Last Stand, but that's about it.
Just that everything in Future Past, besides Quicksilver, was so annoying.
You mean in Apocalypse?
Apocalypse, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, Apocalypse was just, it's like I said earlier, I mean, you gotta, if you're gonna do this whole crazy cult-like guy, like, just double down, do it. I mean, it seemed like the movie was too afraid to get into Apocalypse's weird, almost like religious angle, and it definitely didn't have his minion characters get in on it, and I think that would have been cool to see them, kind of in that cult mindset of like, he is doing the right thing and all this stuff, as opposed to like, he made me super powerful, so like, whatever, it's cool. And that's kind of how that movie hit me. And I think a part of that is because you have like all of them, aside from Magneto, is a hero, right? Like Psylocke and Angel are all like good guys in other things. correct me if I'm wrong there, I'm not sure, but you make them all villains, and I mean, it would have made more sense for them to be like kind of under that cult spell and think that they're doing the right thing, as opposed to bad boy, bad girl, superhero, but whatever. Like that's where it just fell apart for me. Just make it crazy cult, and you're good.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna go down to number 7. Deadpool 2. Oh, they're actually including those. Okay. Deadpool 2. Okay,
Yeah.
so if we're introducing Deadpool movies here, so this changes the game for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I fucking love the Deadpool movies. God.
I don't know. I mean, I think Deadpool 2 is where it belongs personally in the grand scheme. As far as X-Men movies go, like it was not the strongest. That number 6 is wrong.
Logan?
Fuck though. Hell no.
Yeah.
That, not number 6.
Oh, God. This list is
Disagree.
fucked.
So look at the first line. Generally considered one of the very best X-Men movies, and yet it's just barely making the halfway point. What the fuck?
It is the halfway point.
That
Damn, that's a slap in the face.
scroll down a little bit. We confess we find this what? Dour, self-important drama a little too pleased with its own gravitas. Dude, fuck that.
Oh my God.
Have they seen Picard?
Yeah, all the Picard parts of Picard are definitely Picard's a big deal, and I mean they blatantly slap you in the face with it in that show.
So, admittedly, I am not a Star Trek fan. I haven't really. I've seen like a handful of Next Gen and shit like that, but it's my understanding that basically the hope for I almost called him Jean-Luc for Sir Patrick Stewart. His hope was that Picard would be his Logan.
It is not because of the way it ends. It could have been in the way it was slated to end, but it didn't. I don't think it really hit like that. It was. So I'm like a big Star Trek fan, so like I've seen it all, but it hits in a way where it's like this is interesting and it's new, and there are parts of it that I liked, but I liked it all overall. I liked it, but the parts of it that I really liked were the parts that they didn't explore a lot because the plot just wouldn't allow it, because it's Star Trek Picard, and the parts like the Borg shit, I was like, this is kind of interesting, like post Borg people, but we're not really talking about that because that's not what this is about. And I'm like, fair enough, that would overbloat your show, but can we please go back to it, because that's like super fucking interesting and I want to know more about that as opposed to what it was about. But no, I wouldn't say it was like Logan. I mean, I think it would have been better off if they made a movie then, if that's what they wanted.
Right. But yeah, that's real quick before we move on to number 5. So admittedly, I feel Star Trek to be very intimidating.
Oh, okay.
Just because there's so much of it, and I know like enough to know like characters, like mostly Next Gen, because I grew up like I say watching it, but it's because that's what my dad was watching, and I happened to be in the room. So I know like Next Gen, like the main kind of crew, or the crew on the main deck, or whatever. And so I'm aware of like Deep Space Nine. I'm aware of Voyager. I'm aware of the movies because I saw the movies with my dad.
Right.
Is there so can you watch the Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space? Can you watch those independently of each other, or do you have
totally.
to? Okay, I didn't know if you had to start with Gene Roddenberry, like the original Star Trek, like with the pilot with Captain Pike, or if you like I don't know if I didn't know if you had to start there, or if you could just monkey branch to any of them, and if there was one you recommend above the others.
Well, straight up, I'd recommend Deep Space Nine. Like that is such a good show on so many levels. Like there's just I couldn't sing its praises enough. I mean, Deep Space Nine uses the Star Trek, kind of setting to talk about like, big deal current event issues, like racism and shit like that. But it also is like, it does it in a really emotionally like rewarding way, to where you're not just watching like the original series where you surprisingly are dealing with themes like that, which makes that show kind of ahead of its time in that regard. But other episodes are just like, we're fighting this bad guy and we're cool with it. And it's just really like Deep Space Nine is probably my favorite one.
And the Deep Space Nine, that's the one where the ship is like a circle and has kind of the claw things on each end.
Yeah, so they're on
Okay.
like a space station,
Gotcha,
and it's
gotcha,
it's
gotcha.
cool too because they're not on a spaceship flying around the galaxy. So it's kind of a different. It
Gotcha.
has like a sitcom kind of feel because you're dealing with the same exact setting over and over and over.
Okay.
But yeah, you can watch them all independently and you'd be fine. There'll be probably like little, you know, call outs or cameos of things or species, or if they'll name events that are like, wait, I think one of the movie I watched the Next Generation movies actually the other day, and in Insurrection they mention like the Dominion Wars and shit, and that's all like in Deep Space Nine, but it's little like throwaway lines like that are kind of
Okay.
like, who cares? You'll probably, I mean, you'd get more out of it if you watched it all the way. I think I did something a while where I kind of was jumping around, but something interesting is like if you started with Enterprise and went all the way through, it might be kind of interesting. I don't know how Discovery would really fit in there anymore, but I mean, just watch it at your own pace and watch what you watch. Honestly, watch what sounds good, especially of the original series, because we're not doing season wide arcs. You can just watch whatever.
Okay.
It's not a big hindering. Like if you don't like an episode, turn it off and skip to the next one. I would
Gotcha.
definitely watch the Khan episode, Space Seed, though, if you want to watch that movie. That's a really good movie in my opinion. But yeah, Star Trek it's you can watch it however you want, and even in like Next Generation, there's an episode I had never seen before, and I grew up like you, like my dad watching the show and stuff when I was a kid, and I've watched the whole what I thought was the whole series, but I was like, oh, I skipped that one because it didn't sound good, and I was no lesser for it. But yeah, I mean, and it's also nice because it's some good background noise when you're not really engaged in it, and it's just stuff happening.
Okay. And is Deep Space Nine, is that the one with Tuvok or is he in Voyager?
Tuvox and Voyager. I
Okay.
will admit Voyager is probably my least favorite one. Um, just because they do a lot of it goes on for too long, and there's a
Gotcha.
lot of like they do some like kooky holodeck stuff, which is like fun because it's like the first time because like, oh, we're doing like a 1950s serial and then we're going to do it 6 more times over the course of these seasons, and I'm like, I don't need one of these per season. It wasn't that good.
Gotcha.
But that one's interesting too because it's like, what do you do as Federation people without the Federation? But yeah, not to go too far off topic into Star Trek, but yeah, like take it how you want it. And lots of people don't feel that way about Voyager, so you might like it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, never been too much of a Star Trek fan. I don't know. I've always thought Star Wars was better, but I can see why people like Star Trek.
I think it's just there's something that you can't compare. I mean, there's once you get into them both, they're so different, and
Yeah, they are.
it's like Star Wars doesn't have that sense of realism, which is fine. It arguably shouldn't the way it is, but like Star Trek gives kind of that rewarding like the science part of science fiction. It kind of gives you that in a rewarding way, so it makes some more sense. And it's also again it's a TV show, so it's a lot more like slower paced, and it's just sort of expanding its world as opposed to movies that are like you have one plot and you're going this direction with it.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I would like to get a little into it, but I would say the most Star Trek I've seen is The Orville,
If you do you
and I
like
love that
you like
show.
the Orville? You like
I
that show?
fucking love The
Go
Orville.
watch Star Trek The Next Generation. It's the same exact like I loved the Orville. I was really impressed with it. If you like seriously, if you like the Orville, you'll love Star Trek The Next Generation. It's like the same vibe, just a bit it's in the 90s.
Okay.
But yeah, no, if you like the Orville, you'll definitely like at least the Next Generation Star Treks. So like TNG, you'll like Voyager, you'll like Deep Space Nine, you'll like those subsequent movies. You probably would like the original series, but again, you gotta remember like the original series came out in the 60s, and I think it's more interesting to watch now because like there's an episode where there's like they're like these two groups arguing, and one group has a black face and a white face, and the other one has a white face and a black face, and it's like it's about racism, right? Because everybody on the Enterprise is just like, why do you guys hate each other? And they're like, because they're those dirty like white face and black face people. And it's like, but it's like the same fucking thing. Like, I don't understand. And that's the whole. It's a little ham-fisted, but because it's the 60s. But it's stuff like that that's like, wow, this was like in the 60s. Like, you kind of use like, you have like the civil rights movement going on, and you think like media and things at the time didn't want to touch it, but Star Trek was one of those shows that was ahead of its time in that regard, and it shows pretty well. And it's interesting to watch because it's like some stuff you go, wow, we're like barely getting into this in 2020.
I'll definitely check it out for sure.
No, if you like Orville, definitely check out the TN. I think this, by the way, to get back to X-Men, I think First Class being better than Logan is a travesty, and First Class being not as good as Deadpool is probably pretty accurate.
How the fuck is Logan 6? And then how's Deadpool 2 at 7? But we got First Class above the Wolverine. That's just stupid.
I was off with the numbering, but I did call it that they would say that First Class was better than Logan.
You were, and it makes me mad because, well, I guess it's not as mad as it could be because the way I thought it was going to be with what you were saying is First Class ends up being number 1. Like, fuck that. No way.
True.
We're going to do the first X-Men and then X2.
Yeah, X-Men 1 being there, X-Men 2 being... So X-Men Days of Future Past is ultimately number 1 then, right?
That's not right in my mind.
No, but it's not number 1. It's top 5, but it's not number 1.
I think I'd put it... So given the whole list, I'd probably... The major change I would move Logan to number 1, shift everything down, and swap Days of Future Past and X2. So X-Men Future Past becomes 3, X2 stays 2, Logan moves up to 1, and everything else just shifts down. And then do some changes in the latter half of the list. But as far as the top 5 go, I mean, it'd be Logan, X2, Days of Future Past, X-Men, and then I guess Deadpool.
I have a hard time putting Deadpool in this list because I know it's the same universe, but they're barely connected at all. Like, aside from the whole X-Mansion, and you see the not Days of Future Past, well, the Apocalypse crew in that one small scene, and then like they close the door, and that's it. Like, besides that, they're barely connected at all.
I mean, I agree more on the sense of it just being like, it doesn't feel the same. Like, looking at this list, with the exception of maybe The Wolverine, the 2013 movie or whenever it came out, the Japan one, all of these movies feel the same. Like, they have that same kind of like vibe the whole time. That sort of, I don't want to say theme. It's not a theme, but it's that feeling you get when you watch these movies. And like Deadpool, not in any negative fashion, totally doesn't do that. It does its own thing. It's like a, almost a black comedy in a way, at some parts anyway, but it's like, it's not the same. It's just in the universe. And I think putting him in this list is just like, I can't do that. Like, it's not the same type of movie. It doesn't fit. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of upsets the whole thing because it's just not going to work.
No, I don't agree with this list.
No, I don't agree with this list at all.
It just bothers me.
I'd give it like, out of a scale out of 100, I give it like a 60%. Like, some of the ordering is right, but the numbering's off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Like, especially once we hit Logan at number 6, then it was just all discombobulated.
Yeah, I think that really threw everything off for me because Vulture's argument here with this is that they found it pretty much condescending. They want to say it's condescending without saying it. And I'm like, that's not... I mean, I don't know. It's like, have you seen a Western before? Like, that was the point. It was to mimic a Western. If you find it condescending, you find every Western movie that has ever been made to be condescending. And
they should go watch True Grit and tell me how they feel.
Yeah, or better yet, just go watch that Shane movie that this entire movie's aping. Like it's the same damn thing. It's just like what did you want? And then whatever they put at number one, I already forgot. Days of Future Past.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Like it's good, but at the same time, we're starting to become kind of that spectacle superhero movie
Mm-hmm.
that at the time we weren't really inundated with, so it was fine. But at the end of the day, you're liking it because it was pretty to watch, and then it's done. Um,
Mm-hmm.
definitely, I don't think it should be number one.
No.
well, that list, I don't agree with it, but makes you realize, like, man, like some of the X-Men movies are just so much better than some of the other ones.
Yeah, and it's
Is
also interesting to see other people's like their arguments. Like Logan hit them as pretentious and condescending. Like I've never met an you kind of go, am I like super limited in who I'm talking to about movies or what? Because I don't know who else felt the same enough for these guys to post that.
I've never talked or met anyone that's ever thought Logan was like subpar. Like
Yeah.
everyone, including me, we all thought, oh, it's fucking great. Like it's hard to top a superhero movie like that.
Yeah, no, I was actually kind of afraid because I was like, how are the rest of the movies going to deal with
There's so
something like
much emotion in that movie, and there's so much more at stake. And it's this character you've been following for years and years, and you slowly see the downfall of him, and you see fucking Patrick Stewart like die. It's like I
you
don't
can
want to see
almost
that
say that the movie
again. You see him die
humanized them.
again.
Yeah, no, I mean it humanized Logan. It had like the way how you just said like it had bigger stakes when it really didn't. Like it just felt like it did.
mm-hmm.
All he's doing is saving like 12 kids. That's it. And
And
even
his
then he's
daughter.
only really attached to his like daughter. That's it. And it just kind of is like you're dealing with a handful of people, yet you feel like the stakes are so intense that it is the equivalent of Thanos destroying half the universe.
Yeah,
And
and
it's kind of like
you gotta keep the mutant gene, the mutant like community alive.
right. And I mean that's
So
that's why X-Men I think has appealed to so many people is because it is that sense of what no matter what the community is, like it can be race, it can be just culture, it can be just like some group of people who like comic books, for instance. It's just that here is this sort of semi-oppressed and shat on group of people and like how they're trying to overcome it without going crazy and like murdering everybody or something like that. And it's relatable. And that's where I think Logan really rides high is it's dealing with, in this case, kind of this, I mean, it's like a government-esque type thing, um, or like some clandestine group that's got the backing of the government to ruin these people's lives. And it's just like, well, I mean, that sucks. And we're dealing with how they're going against it. And at the end of the day, Logan dies in like a triumphant fashion. And it's this heartbreaking scene. Shit, I remember almost crying when she's like saying the thing at the grave. I was like, fuck, this hit all the right, boxes for this to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And to just be like, it was condescending. I'm like, fuck you. Like, I don't know. I got a hard disagree with that, but I am kind of curious, like, why did this person really view it? Like, if they were to go, what's the difference between Days of Future Past and Logan for you? I'd be curious to hear what that is.
probably the fact that they combined both casts in the same movie, and it still felt like an older X-Men movie with the same
So
like cast
fans,
as the new ones.
like, that's the problem I have is it becomes a fan service thing, and it's just like I got to see all my X-Men together, and it's like, well, cool, but
That's how it should have been from the get go, but whatever. You went younger and stupider, but that's on you guys.
I mean, at the same time, like you like it because it did the cool thing of putting the universes together, and like you have
Yeah.
Patrick Stewart and young quote unquote Patrick Stewart being doing things, and I'm like, it's cool, and they did it well, but that's not a reason to say a movie's good necessarily that they
You get to
did that.
see you get to see Magneto and his crew team up with the X-Men maybe. I don't know. It's just very weird to me. I will give
Mhm.
Logan this. They had the balls in a good way to like to put X-Men comics in the movie. Like they reference like, hey, people write these and they're not how the stories actually went. And some of
And
them are
that was
fake. And
cool.
that was one of the coolest things I've seen in a comic book movie. I was like, damn, they like legitimately, or like they're super self-aware in this movie. It's awesome.
But they also didn't do like, especially in this age of like Rick and Morty and shit. Like, I mean, I like Rick and Morty well enough, but it's this whole like everything has to be super fucking meta, and they didn't do that, which was great because that's the slippery slope putting the comic books in. Like he was just like, yeah, they wrote those fucking books because we became big heroes, and it's not how it happened at all. As opposed to, oh wow, that's crazy, a comic book about the X-Men. I was an X-Men. What a weird meta fucking joke. And like, let's move on with our lives. Like they did it in a really tasteful and I think palatable way to sort of wedge that in there. And they also made it part of the plot in like a not meta way, which was pretty cool. So I think they did it well. I agree, Cody. I think it was a good thing to put in there.
I concur. I don't know
Well,
what you said. I'm falling asleep on my microphone, but I agree.
well,
So
before we get going, guys, we got 5 more minutes, real quick, and I just want to go over this with you before we head out. I'm going to share my screen one more time. So, Sal, you know that I do the Florida Man stories every boardroom show, and I am
Correct.
I am the Fandom Menace's Florida Man. So,
You are
unofficial Florida Man.
so
So,
you are the boardroom supernatural. Uh, what is it? Super.
oh
Fuck.
God,
The supernatural Florida Man delegation.
okay.
I forgot what it was called. It was like this long ass title.
Yeah, because we were like, well, Cody, what are you going to talk about? And he threw like 4 topics at us, so we just combined it into one long name. The supernatural delegation from Florida.
Supernatural representative of the Florida Man delegation.
That's what it was.
There you go. Well, damn.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. That's what she said. Okay. So, Florida Man topic. Florida man in Easter Bunny costume arrested after hit and run. Previously seen in viral video brawling in same outfit.
Why is there a picture of him behind the president? I don't
That's not
understand.
even like anything to do with it, which is kind of annoying.
That's weird.
So,
No,
yeah.
but anyway, yeah. Oh
A
God.
Florida man dressed in an Easter Bunny costume has been arrested after allegedly fleeing the scene of a hit and run motorcycle crash.
Wait,
Florida
wait, wait.
Highway.
Was he on the motor? I gotta know if he was on the motorcycle
We
because
got to
that's
find that out. Florida Highway Patrol said they arrested Antoine Turkey McDonald. What? On January 16th, as he was trying to evade authorities in the aftermath of a motorcycle crash in Seminole County, according to a report from WFTV. The arrest was not the first time McDonald has been spotted wearing an Easter Bunny costume under unusual circumstances. In April of 2019, he was the star of a viral video after being caught on camera brawling on an Orlando sidewalk while wearing the outfit. The latest incident began when McDonald allegedly crashed a motorcycle into a carport, damaging a vehicle underneath before fleeing the scene of a crime. The crime. McDonald is believed to have ignored a stop sign before hitting a chain link fence and flipping the motorcycle into the carport. A witness is said to have seen him hobbling away from the incident or accident site.
arguably this is all caused by the bunny suit. I mean, if he
Yeah,
wasn't wearing it, I feel like he would have been able to drive a motorcycle perfectly fine.
he loves this bunny suit though. It's hilarious.
I
I
feel
mean,
like they missed a huge opportunity by not misspelling hobbling into hopping.
oh my God, that would have been amazing. I mean, well, you're reading this. It sounds like an Onion article. Like I was expecting him to be like, the minute they say, "Yeah, this guy is like hopping away from the scene," I'm like, okay, we're dealing with a satire. This is
Dang, they could have. This the Newsweek Florida Man articles. They're all legit. Like I read one a couple boardroom episodes ago. It was a guy in Port St. John, Thomas. He
Mhm.
was naked in his driveway, and he was just throwing rocks at cars.
I remember that one.
And it's fucking hilarious. It's like, damn, that is definitely Port St. John right there.
Yeah, I mean, move too far away from Titusville, and you get kind of some weird characters.
Police investigating the incident traveled to the registered address of the motorcycle owner, where they observed a gray SUV backing out of a driveway. They stopped the vehicle and discovered McDonald laying in the back seat, apparently attempting to avoid suspicion by dressing in the bunny costume. McDonald was injured and required assistance to be taken from the car. The costume was removed and he was placed under arrest before being taken to a local hospital due to his injuries. Authorities said McDonald was helped by the driver and another passenger of the SUV, but their status is currently unclear. McDonald was later taken to Seminole County Jail. So this video was from last year, and this thing went viral all over the place. But just in downtown Orlando, this bunny just started wailing on people.
I feel like this is definitely.
I got it all, bro.
Holy shit! I feel like this is definitely one of those like he was doing something Easter related around the corner, and these two people were fighting, and he just like ran in to stop it, which I guess like is probably better than crashing your motorcycle and running away. But okay, that's wild. What
That's
was
just
he
insane
doing?
to me.
No, I think it's almost, if he wasn't in a car, it'd almost be clever to use the bunny suit to hide from the cops. Like if he like ran into a closet and just like sat on the floor Toy Story style in the suit and just was like quiet the whole time, he might have gotten away. Like
You could just happen to come across like a chair set up for an Easter bunny for like a store, and then just act like you're the Easter bunny supposed to be like hanging out with the kids or whatever, and just sit down and wait.
I mean, he seems like he's got an idea for it, but that's some wild shit. I think he's kind of an idiot for trying to ride a motorcycle with a bunny costume on. At least take that, like, I don't know, put some rope around that helmet thing and tie it to your back or something. Like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of problems could have been wear the mask.
I think it's fucking brilliant. Sally, still awake over there?
I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
All right. Well, we'll let you get to sleep. So we're going to go ahead and end this now. I think it's a good time to stop the show. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us at Goober Brothers Entertainment for our Quaranstream 4. I'd like to thank everybody in the chat. Sal, hanging out with us today. Really appreciate you, man. Thomas, thanks for coming on again.
No problem, dude.
Thanks, FlareX. Thanks, eTepple Queens, the place to be reviews. And I think that was it in here. But yeah, check us out tonight. Me, Sal, and eTepple Coins, the place to be reviews. We're going to be here on Goober Brothers Entertainment again later tonight at 8:30 p.m. for another episode of The Boardroom. So if you guys want, go on over, tune in, and we're going to have a good show for you guys.
Huzzah!
I'll be sure to catch it.
All right, everybody, make sure to check out So What Happens Next on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and anywhere else they can find you, Thomas.
Oh, I mean, wherever you get your podcast, as far as I know. If you're one of like the few people that uses Google, you can get them there. You can also get them off our website, swhn19.com. You can snag them off the website if you like. They're up there. I think I said it yesterday, but we just did an episode on Candyman that got released this week, so go check it out. I think it's a pretty good one. It's some interesting talk. We never saw Candyman before, and it's like a classic horror movie, so you get to listen to us do that.
Clive Barker's the best.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead and check out So What Happens Next later on, whenever you get the chance. I put the link to Apple Podcasts for So What Happens Next in the description, so go ahead and check them out. And then later tonight, come check out The Boardroom. But everybody have a great rest of your day. Stay safe out there. Wash your damn hands.
Yeah, stay inside.